welcome to Ecoholics. Have you heard about the concept of carbon markets? What do you think is carbon permits? Carbon permits, tradable rights, emission trading rights, pollution permits. Well, these are confusing terms, but today we'll explain everything and you will understand what exactly is the concept of carbon trading rights or carbon permits. You must have heard about carbon markets as the market where the carbon units are traded. But how are they traded? So let's understand what exactly is the concept behind the permits given by the government to these different industries. Let's first understand that what we today are going to talk about is carbon permits. Now this terminology is very important because this will tell you most of the things that we are going to study today. Permits can be stated as like a root word for permission. So there's something that the industries or the factories are doing which requires governments or authorities permission, and on the basis of that permission they are going to receive these permits. Permit is basically the documentation or a certain document which is authorized by the government, by a certain agency, which will designate a certain amount of permission. Now, what is this permission for? This permission is for the amount of pollution that a factory or industries can generate in the economy. Usually, the carbon permits or the emission trading rights are actually used as instruments to control pollution in the economy. When we study in environmental economics, we learn about the different instruments that will enhance the productivity of the economy and reduce pollution in the environment. So these are very important instruments which will help in curbing the pollution in the economy and also facilitate growth in the economy. Now let's understand the concept of trading and how these carbon permits or pollution permits are traded within the economy. Imagine that there is a certain quota given for different factories or different industries which are generating pollution. So quota is given to factories of different industries which generate pollution. Pollution is a negative externality, we all know that, and which is why the lesser the pollution, the better it will be for the environment and for the future generations, for sustainability. When we talk about this permit, actually the authorities or the government are trying to set a certain rationing of these carbon units. So imagine that there are a certain amount of carbon units which these factories can utilize. Okay, in a specific time period. Let's say that the certain amount of carbon units that the government has given to these factories or to these industries, they are equivalent for the amount of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide and other different greenhouse gases to be generated within a span of 2 years. Okay, so these carbon units are adequate for industries, for factories generating pollution for 2 years. Now, within these 2 years, different factories can generate different types of pollution depending upon the production that the goods and services are being produced in a certain type of factory. Some type of goods and services which are produced in a factory may generate more pollution than the other. So, it would differ. Now, let's say that there are 2 factories. Okay. This is factory A and this is factory unit. This is factory unit B. The factory unit A and factory unit B are 2 factories which are producing goods and services. A certain type of manufacturing is happening in these factories and the government has provided them with a certain amount of quota of carbon units. These are adequate for survival for them for 2 years. So you can see that the carbon units are limited. They are fixed in nature, right? Now, these 2 factories are going to start their production. Now, let's say that the production that is happening in factory A is happening at a very sustainable pace, and so factory A does not generate a lot of pollution. Probably they are utilizing various techniques which curb the pollution also, and so the factory A is generating the goods and services very sustainably. So there is a sustainability within the production of goods and services here. Now, why this is important to know? Because the carbon units that have been given to this factory are more than enough for them to produce any type of pollution. Any which ways the pollution is less here. So what will happen? They will have some spare carbon units. Factory A will not be able to utilize all the carbon units given by the government, given by the authorities. Reason being, pollution ही नहीं हो रहा है. The pollution is very less generated in the factory A, and which is why factory A will have some spare units of carbon to be given to any other factory which actually requires. Now, let's have on the other hand the example of factory B. Factory B is generating huge amount of pollution, heavy polluter. Factory B. Factory B has already exhausted most of the carbon permits. So let's say if the whole of this bar was imaginary, that this was carbon permits, they have probably utilized almost this much amount, okay? And only this much amount of the carbon units remain. Now, how can they survive with this much amount of carbon units? Because the factory has to work, the factory has to produce, economic activities need to be progressed, expansion needs to happen, and in all of that, we know that this is a pollution generating factory, so the pollution inherently will increase. If they exhaust all the carbon units, they will not be able to be operational. So what will they do? They will run to the factory A and they will say, please spare us some carbon units because we need to carry on our production. And so the spare amount of carbon units that factory A has, they will give it to factory B, but not for free. This will be a system of trading which has been established under the concept of carbon markets. So factory A will be giving the spare amount of carbon units at a certain price. Now, who decides this price? As I said that there is a carbon market, so exactly like stock exchange, like stock market, where the demand and supply of stocks will fluctuate according to the demand and supply of the different stocks that are available. So that will decide the price. And similarly, here as well, the total amount of carbon units that exist in the market will decide the price according to the fluctuating demand and supply in that carbon market, in that industry, or in those industries in the economy. And so at that price, the factory B is going to trade with factory A and take up those carbon units. Now the bigger question is whether the instrument of carbon trading or emission trading rights or pollution trading, does it really reduce the amount of pollution? What do you think if I say that the carbon markets actually function similar to stock exchange or stock market, and we know in a stock exchange money actually multiplies at a certain level. So don't you think that the pollution also would multiply at a certain level? Well, this is the $1,000,000 question that I'm going to ask to you, and you need to comment in the comment section below of your theories and your different ideas and visions with regards to reduction of pollution in an economy with the help of the carbon trading. So I'll see you all in the next video with more content on environmental economics, and you keep on typing in that comment section below that what you all think about carbon trading, whether it is good, whether it is bad, or how will it be useful for an economy to curb pollution. That's all for today. See you in the next video.